Hi guys, and welcome to my first tutorial on PHP. And in this tutorial I will show you the variables but also introduce you to the web server we will use and show you the print statement as well in this tutorial. The tutorial may be a bit long, but bear with me, this is just a beginning tutorial. I have to explain some stuff and how to use the server, where to get it from and stuff like this, so you will know how to run your PHP scripts. So first of all, you can access my file through my page, which I always give you in the description. In the description you have a link to my page. You can find the file where I give you the introduction to the PHP. You can read some useful information. Now, for example, we will use a notepad to program PHP to write the scripts, and the extension is .php, as you can see here, .php. That's the extension we will use. And I recommend using WAMP server because this is the one I'm using. This is the one I currently have, WAMP server. Now I have a newer version than 1.7. I have 2.4. And if you want to, I will give you a link in the description as well for 2.4 version, but there is really no difference between those two. What we need the server for is just to access our PHP files, because you cannot access them without the server. So we will just simply access them and run our scripts from the server to see how they work, if they work and stuff like this. But you can download 1.7 version. It's perfectly fine. I just have a newer version because I formatted my PC. That's why. The installation process is here as well. I will show you how to go through the installation process. I recommend don't change anything and just leave it as it is, because it will simply be used as a personal server, not as a general public use server. This will be a server which you can just learn your PHP, how to write a script, how to add some stuff to the PHP and stuff like this. So it's a local server just for you, just for your use, for your own use. So I don't recommend changing anything. And if you don't know anything about the server, I wouldn't recommend changing at all anything. Just go next and go through the instructions I have written here, and you should be fine. If you have any problems, just give him a message and I should be able to help you if there is such a problem. Okay, so that's pretty much it about the server. Now, of course, I have a server which is installed already. I won't go through the installation process because I don't want to uninstall it and reinstall it again. It's painful. But I have a server. You just click on it with the left mouse button. As you can see, you have a list. The list will contain a local host. Well, if you choose a different server, you'll probably have a localhost, and localhost is basically a home page for your web server. Mine's WAMP server. It's a home page which you have to access to get to your directory, and your directory is another thing we will access. So you can access this one, or you can just go to your browser and put in a localhost IP number address and simple access it from there. It's very simple, and the address is very easy to remember as well. And the directory is very important because we will have all the files here. Now those are two files that are default, I believe, because I didn't create them actually. So this must be default. And also you have to create folders for your I don't know, PHP scripts and whatever you have to be displayed on the web page. You have to put in the folder. Now it doesn't matter if you put everything in one folder, but it's better to actually organize your stuff and put one script for one specific purpose to one folder, and then when you create another script for different purpose, you just put a new folder and put it there, so you have everything organized, you know where it is and stuff like this. I don't think I have to tell you that. So you create a folder, and inside the folder you put your stuff, PHP scripts, To create a PHP, I will show you in a minute, but you put it there and you can put your images, text files, you can put JavaScript files, pretty much anything. So that's where your directory is. And now this is the page, the PHP page. That's how you started basically. So it's a arrow to the left, I call it, with the question mark. And now you may see in some videos, in some pages, that the PHP is not there. Well, it could work with some servers, but and you don't have to write it sometimes. But with WAMP server, at least with the old version, I don't know, with the new one, I didn't check it, but with the old version you have to have a PHP written here. Otherwise the script might not work, might not load, and you'll get errors, and then you will wander around what's wrong with your code probably, and it's actually those three letters you just have to include. That might be just the problem. So I advise you to just put it. Even if you don't have to put it, it won't affect your code. It's simply, you know, I don't know, the WAMP server will know it's a PHP script. And that's the ending. Tag, a question mark, and arrow to the right. So it's fairly simple. You don't have to write anything else, obviously, besides the code, but that's just the open and close tags. Now, this is the beginning, so I don't want to show you too much information and stuff like this, but I can tell you that this is not the only way you can write your code. In the future, I will show you how you can actually, because PHP is very flexible. It's more flexible than JavaScript. That's a given. And what you can do with PHP is you can write to a certain point, even in a string, cut it off, close the PHP with this tag, close it with the tag, write in HTML, because you can write HTML with the PHP script, and start the PHP again after the HTML, for example. Start the PHP again and just continue from the point you left off. It's that flexible. It simply doesn't care where you stop it. It just cares where you start, and it has to be on the specific point. If it's an error, well, it's an error. If you just continue it like you would normally without cutting the script, it will work perfectly fine, because it doesn't care wherever you put the break and just starts it all over again. That's why it's flexible. But I don't want to show you this today. I will not show you this today at all. It's too confusing for a first tutorial. Today I will just show you variables. I will show you print statements and simple things, pretty much. Before we go to the coding, I will show you the page, the home page of the WAMP server. This is the home page of the WAMP server. As you can see, this is the IP, this is the local host. So you can just simply write it all the time. Whenever you open your browser, you can just type it in. It's fairly simple to remember. 127.0.0.1. It's very simple. I've learned it 6 years ago and I still remember it. So I don't think anyone should have any problems with it. Okay, so you can see a couple of things here. For example, the version, but also the configuration. This has nothing to do with us. Tools, you don't even have to access them. I rarely do. The PHP info, you won't probably understand any of this. And there's a lot of writing. You can actually check it out if you want to, if you're interested in this, but you won't get any out of it probably. It's too advanced for you. You can log into my admin. Well, I wouldn't recommend. You don't want to mess up with anything. The same goes with the folders you saw there. Don't go to any sort of init files or config files. You can mess up your scripts, your config files, then the server will not load, will have crashes or bugs, and you will have to reinstall it again, which is a pain. So I just suggest, if you're using it for just PHP, just simply type it in and use this your projects only, this section. As you can see, you have two folders. The one is for this tutorial, And when I access it, I have a link to get me back to my home page, and a files, and many different files will be displayed here, but I just have one, which is .php. And when I click it, you will see actual results, but I don't have anything in my file, so well, you see nothing. Okay, let's go to the coding now, to the real tutorial, let's say. Variables. Variables are very important in programming, as you may or may not know. I advise you to actually, if you don't know JavaScript or HTML, you have to know HTML, and I advise you to know the JavaScript, because we will use it with PHP. I advise you to learn the JavaScript and HTML first, then move on to PHP. If you want to just learn PHP, I don't know if you can, because you have to actually use some of the tags from HTML. You have to use the forms from HTML if you want the forms on your script, because PHP doesn't support forms. That's why you have HTML. So you have to know forms if you want some. JavaScript allows you functions, stuff like this, and different functions. PHP also does, but you know, sometimes you create a form with functions, so it's HTML. Anyway, variables. Variables are very important, and they're similar to the variables that we have with JavaScript. They're very similar, but the point is that the syntax is very weird with PHP. With sorry, with JavaScript we have a var to represent a variable. In PHP we have a $sign. But the difference is that in JavaScript you just declare a var and just use the name. That's it. In PHP it's not that simple. You declare it with the $sign, but you also use the $sign to access the variable value. So you have to use the $sign all the time. Whenever you want a calculation of the variable, of its value, whenever you want to add something, to print it out, to whatever, you have to use the $sign. So $sign, some kind of name, no spaces, just $sign and some kind of name, no spaces there. You can add value, for example, 5, 10. You can add the float. It doesn't actually care which type of value you put in. You can put a string, you can put float, integer. It doesn't really care. And you can interchange those values, like with JavaScript. So you have a variable which is, for example, num, contains 5, and then you can change it to string or whatever. So basically, that's how the variable will look like with the assign statement, and at the end of each statement you basically add a semicolon, like in normal programming languages like C++, for example, Java, C#, I don't know, NetBeans. You have, well, that's Java. I meant Visual Basic, actually. Nevertheless, you have to actually, I don't know with Visual Basic, actually I don't remember, I haven't used it for quite long now. But anyway, you have to use those semicolons to actually end the statement, and that's the same thing in here. So if you know, for example, Java or C++ or C, or I don't know, C#, something like this, you get the syntax pretty well fast, quite fast. It's just that it's weird at the beginning with the variables because they use $sign, and there are some weird rules about the print statement. So I will just show you later on. Okay, let's have a new variable again. Okay, so this time a string. And now what we can do is the print statement. And then we have two types of print statements. It's both of them are called print. You just say print, but it's that is the thing that you put in. Let's call it like this, matters. We can use either a quotation mark or speech mark, or we can use an apostrophe. Now I will show you the difference. What's the difference between those two? So print, I will use a quotation mark first. So the value, for example, of num is, and to print out the value, I have to use actual variable with the $sign. So as you can see, I use num, but this will not print the value itself, it will just print the string. But when I use it like this, it will actually print its value, not the string. I hope this will get through to you guys, because it's quite confusing at the beginning. Okay, so I save this, I open the file, the PHP file, and you can see the result. The value of num is 5. Okay, I'll go back. Whoa. Okay, so that's pretty much how this works. If you use the quotation mark and you specify the variable, so $sign and the name of the variable, like num, you will print its value. Now, the difference is when I use an apostrophe, and I will print out the same sentence. The value of num is num. And I'll add the break here. Now, if you want to add the break, sometimes I heard people say, well, just add /n. Not this one, /n. Doesn't work for me, actually. I don't know why. So what I do, I simply add a break, a HTML break tag. It goes like this, br. Simple as that. This is as simple as that. Okay, I have to add the semicolon here. You can see you have to actually remember about the semicolons. I will show you an error in a minute. Let me just show you how this works. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, it broke the line. Sorry, it moved the next print to the next line, which I tend to use break statements all the time whenever I want to break the line. It's easier that way. I don't have to play around with n. I don't have to specify the n here because it works perfectly fine. I used it for my coursework, so my teacher never actually complained about this. So I think there's no much problem with it. Anyway, let me show you the page. So the value of num is 5, and the other statement, as you can see, is the value of num is $sign num. So the difference is that when I use my police shuts up. When I use my quotation marks, I actually take the value of the variable when I use a $sign. But when I use a apostrophe and I print the same, I write the same sentence, this actually becomes a string. This will be treated as a normal string, plain string. Whatever is between this and this is a plain string. It will appear on the page the same way it is written in the document, basically. So if you want to print a for example, $num1 is equal to something, you will have to actually use this. But I will not show you today because it's a bit confusing. I will not show you how to merge these two. I will show you in the future tutorial, so don't worry about this. You will see how this works. But let's move on to the calculations. So calculations are pretty simple. I don't have two numeric variables. Let me see. Let's number equals 0.5, for example. So I have num and number. Two of my variables are numeric. I can add them because I cannot add a string with the number. It doesn't work that way. I can of course merge those two, but I cannot add them. And I will show you what I mean in a minute. Just first of all, let me just do this one. So num is equal to num, let's say, plus number. So you can do this if you remember from, for example, JavaScript or different programming languages. This is pretty much the same thing. It's just num equals num plus number. So pretty simple calculation of addition, and we assign this to number. Now if I print the number, num, save, and go back, you have 10.5. So it changed from a whole numbers, from integers, to a float numbers, or double numbers, or fractional numbers, however you like to call it. Initially it was integer. I've set it as a 5, so it's an integer, and now it's in point with fractional numbers. So basically it's changed its style of displaying thing, which is helpful. You don't have to actually specify the type of the variable, which allows you to for more freedom, for more flexibility, in my opinion. So that's one way you can do something. Let me just delete this. And the other thing is you can add the string with the number, but you don't use the plus sign. So what you do is use, you actually can do something else. You can do print, and you can do it like this as well. Print, for example, name. I don't remember if you do it like this or like this. Name dot num. With this, okay. Okay, let me check if this works because I don't remember actually. If I did like this, it's been a long time to use it. Yeah. So basically, yeah, you have to actually use. You don't actually use the quotation mark here. Go away because you will have a dot, but you can use it like this. Okay, so what I have here now. What I did is I used name.num. What this means, it doesn't mean like we do, for example, in programming languages such as Java, C++, when we have a class or we have an object, methods, stuff like this. Object has access to the methods, the variables, or whatever. When you press, when you hit the dots, when you add the dots to the object's name, you tend to see the list of available methods and stuff like this. This is the common view of the dot symbol in the programming. But in the PHP, it actually doesn't work this way. In PHP, dot means concat. Concat the string with the number or whatever. Just add those two together. Two things together and create, for example, one string out of it or something like this. So it will just add those things together, but not as a number, but as a string, basically. So that's how it basically works. And you can add it with the numbers as well. You don't have to add numbers like this. You can add it with the numbers as well. So, for example, number. You can do something like this. What is 5510.5? You can do something like this. So you don't add the numbers, you just add those two values as a string together. You create like one word basically, but those are numbers, so it's not a word. Anyway, that's how it pretty much works. And another difference I can show you is that, for example, as you can see, I didn't use any of the, for example, quotation mark. I didn't use the quotation mark, nor I used a apostrophe. That is because if I use it, it will still print out those two values. It will do it, but it will print out the dots, and I don't want the dots. I want to add those things together and print them as one. So I don't use any of these, and you can actually do it. As you can see, you have no quotation marks or apostrophes, and it simply prints out both things or more, probably, as one thing. So it cuts the spaces and just adds it like this. I can just explain like this. You can add to string, change it. You already probably should know this with the JavaScript, how to do it. It's just that the variables changes, the syntax of course changes, and you have to remember about the semicolons. If you forget the semicolon, look at this. I deliberately deleted a semicolon. I saved it, and now I have an error. And now it's so good that it tells me where the error is. That's why I was talking about the beginning. That when you have an error, it will actually tell you where the error is. It says what type of error it is. It's a syntax error. It's unexpected num. So, you know, it's something to do with this. It's a variable. It tells you in which file it is and on what line. So if you count the lines, unfortunately I don't have the lines, but if you count the lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it doesn't read this one because of the statement before. It depends on what type of error you have actually, but it doesn't read this one in because I didn't finish the statement. If I do, it will simply do it like this. Same goes probably with the string. If I just say it like this, I'll get a different error. So for example, I'll get a memory error, and I'll get the values. As you can see, I got the values. I still got the output, but I didn't get the memory allocation and stuff. Allocation, but it was undefined basically. So as you can see, it will give you the errors. It will give you the table sometimes with the strings probably most of the time. But it's very simple. It's very simple. You just have to remember to add those things, and it will work perfectly fine. As I showed you how to use the server, I showed you how to create variables, how to use the variables. More about the variables and stuff like this I will show you in my next tutorial, because I don't want to confuse you. You just go by yourself now, work with the variables, add them, subtract them, and multiply. Just play around with them, get along with the syntax of the variables with the $sign and how to use it. Play around with the print methods. As I showed you, it will help you a lot because I will use print methods a lot in my tutorials. I will also use sometimes I will use a different type of printing methods, so it's better if you know all of them. I just showed you 3. You can use a quotation mark, you can use sorry, you can use a no quotation or apostrophes, or you can just use apostrophe to print out the plain string. Anyway, this is the end of my tutorial. Visit my webpage and YouTube channel for more tutorials, still more tutorials to come about the PHP and other programming languages as well. If you like my videos, subscribe on the channel on my videos, like them if you want to, and share as well. It's up to you guys. If you want to share them, go ahead. I have nothing against them. Post any comments about the programs, maybe suggestions if you want to see something more, something less, whatever. Because I tend to focus on one language, and I forget about the other ones. I push the C++ a lot because I want to finish with it and then move on to the game programming. But we will see. It will still, I have a lot of tutorials to do about the C++. PHP will take about I don't know, maybe 12, maybe more tutorials. Depends on how many tutorials I will create about one topic. There's lots of them. There's functions, there's arrays, loops, if statements. Probably in the next tutorial we'll cover if statements, so it gets more interesting. We have also databases, XML. I will show you how to write the XML files, databases, and how to link the databases, how to, I don't know, I don't remember actually. Never mind, I will have to revise for it actually. Anyway, after the PHP we'll have Ajax, which is it's not that hard, but it's very useful if you want to build a dynamic page basically. So it's very useful in that way. And that will be pretty much about the web development from my expertise, I would say. If I learn something, I don't know, maybe I will do some tutorials about it, but that's in the future. So as I said, visit my webpage. If you like my videos, just like them and subscribe. And I will see you in my next tutorial. And make sure to visit, and I will see you. Bye.